All right, so get this. You shared this research on blonde hair with us because you're curious about, like its origins and how it spread all over the globe and what its future might even hold, right?
Yeah.
We'll get ready to be amazed because we're going to uncover some pretty wild stuff.
Yeah.
And we've even got some insights
Okay.
that are going to blow your mind.
Awesome.
It's incredible how, like, a trait as simple as, like, hair color
Right.
can have, like, a seriously complex story behind it.
It's amazing.
For real.
Yeah.
And speaking of mind-blowing, did you know that there have been discoveries of blonde mummies in China that date back like 4,000 years?
Wow.
Blonde hair in China.
Yeah.
You'd think those ancient travelers like brought the hair straight out of Scandinavia or something.
It really makes you rethink those assumptions about where you expect to find certain traits like blonde hair, both geographically and historically.
Right.
It suggests a level of interconnectedness and migration patterns that we're only just beginning to understand.
Like a total history mystery.
Yeah.
And it gets even more interesting when you realize that blonde hair is actually a pretty recent mutation.
Mm-hmm.
It appeared only around 18,000 years ago.
Yes, specifically in a population called the ancient North Eurasians.
Oh, wow.
They were hunter-gatherers roaming across, you guessed it, northern Eurasia.
Okay, so we've got these ancient wanderers with blonde hair popping up in these unexpected places.
Right.
But here's the thing that, like, really gets me. Blonde hair is a recessive trait.
Yeah.
So for those who need a quick genetics refresher, this means that both parents need to carry the gene
Mm-hmm.
for a child to even have a chance of inheriting, those golden locks.
Right.
So how in the world did this trait become so widespread, especially given that it's, like, relatively recent,
Well, it's a question that has sparked some pretty interesting theories.
Okay.
One of the leading ones is all about the potential advantages that lighter skin and hair offered
Okay.
in those colder, low sunlight environments.
Oh, that makes sense.
So basically, less melanin, which is the pigment that, gives our skin and hair its color, means more sunlight can be absorbed by the skin.
Gotcha.
And this would have allowed those early Europeans living way up north to produce more vitamin D,
Right.
which is essential for things like bone health.
Makes sense. More sunlight, more vitamin D, healthier folks up north.
Exactly.
But wait, wouldn't other populations that were living in, like, similar climates have developed that same trait?
You're right. You've hit on one of the key limitations of that vitamin D theory. It doesn't fully explain why blondness became so dominant in certain areas while other populations in similar environments didn't seem to, follow suit.
Okay, so what's the other explanation then? Like, why did this recessive trait manage to spread so successfully?
Well, let's step into the world of sexual selection.
Okay.
Anthropologist Peter Frost proposed a theory that suggests that blondness, along with blue or light-colored eyes, may have become like super desirable traits because they were so rare in prehistoric Europe. Imagine a prehistoric fashion show where, like, everyone's sporting the same brown hair and eyes, and then suddenly someone walks in with blonde hair and piercing blue eyes.
Okay, yeah.
People would definitely notice.
So basically, in a world of brunettes, blondes stood out. Rarity equals attractiveness.
Exactly. And Frost suggests that this advantage was even stronger in prehistoric Europe
Okay.
because there was potentially a skewed sex ratio,
Oh, wow.
meaning there might have been more women than men.
Hmm.
And this imbalance may be caused by things like, higher male mortality during hunts or conflicts could have created an environment where those rare traits like blonde hair held a serious advantage when it came to attracting mates.
So, like, picture this.
Mhm.
You're a blonde-haired, blue-eyed individual in this ancient setting, and you're not just rocking a unique look. You're holding, like, a golden ticket in the mating game.
Exactly. In such a scenario, those with these rare features would have had more chances to reproduce, passing on their genes and increasing the prevalence of long hair over generations.
Oh, okay, that's starting to make sense. But wait, hold on a second. Didn't we mention blonde people in Melanesia earlier?
We did.
They don't have any known genetic connection to European populations, right?
That's right, and that's where the story gets even more interesting. The blonde hair found in Melanesia is actually due to a completely different recessive gene.
Wait, so you're telling me blonde hair evolved independently
Yeah.
in two different parts of the world?
It did.
Nature was like, hey, let's try this whole blonde hair thing out a couple of different ways.
It really highlights how complex and fascinating human evolution can be.
Right.
Different genetic pathways, environmental pressures, and maybe even cultural preferences can all lead to the same striking trait appearing in totally different parts of the globe.
Wow. It really makes you wonder, like, how many other, like, seemingly simple traits
Right.
have these like incredible stories behind them.
Exactly.
We might think blonde hair is pretty common,
Yeah.
but actually, globally speaking, it's pretty rare, huh?
You're absolutely right. Despite its presence across, different continents,
Mm-hmm.
only about 2% of the world's population actually has natural blonde hair.
Wow. That's a tiny fraction of humanity rocking the golden hue.
Yeah.
So with all the like mixing and mingling of populations that's happening now, in our increasingly connected world,
Mm.
is there a chance that blonde hair could like actually fade out someday?
Ah.
I vaguely remember seeing something online about blonde hair like disappearing.
Ah, yes, the blonde extinction theory. It's
Yeah.
been floating around online for a while.
Okay.
The basic idea is that as populations become more interconnected,
Right.
and because blonde hair is a recessive trait,
Uh-huh.
the gene will become less and less concentrated, leading to fewer blondes over time.
So it's like a slow motion genetic fade out.
You could say that.
Yeah, that would be a shame.
Yeah.
What do scientists think about this theory?
Well, a lot of scientists aren't totally convinced. They
Okay.
point out that being blonde doesn't exactly put you at a disadvantage in terms of survival.
Right.
In fact, as we talked about with the vitamin D theory,
Yeah.
it might even offer some benefits depending on where you live.
Okay.
And even if the frequency of the gene goes down,
Mm-hmm.
it'll probably continue to be passed down
Okay.
through generations, just not as often.
So maybe we won't see as many flaxen-haired folks running around.
Right.
But blonde hair itself isn't going extinct anytime soon.
Exactly. It's more likely to be a gradual shift
Okay.
in the overall genetic landscape
Gotcha.
rather than a sudden vanishing act.
Well, that's good news for all the blonde bombshells out there.
Yeah,
This deep dive has been like full of surprises.
it has.
Who would have thought that blonde hair had like such a rich and complicated history?
It really underscores that even those traits we kind of take for granted
Right.
can have deep roots in our evolutionary past and connections that span the globe.
Yeah, let's like recap what we've uncovered so far.
Okay.
We started by like busting that myth
Mm-hmm.
that blonde hair is a purely Nordic thing.
Right.
Then we went back in time, traced its origins back to those ancient North Eurasian hunter-gatherers.
Okay.
We even got into that debate about why a recessive trait like blonde hair
Mm-hmm.
became so widespread,
Yeah.
exploring ideas around vitamin D sexual selection,
Right.
and maybe even like a combination of factors.
And let's not forget those Melanesian blondes.
Right.
A perfect example of how evolution can take different routes
Yeah.
to get to the same result.
It's mind-boggling to think that blonde hair emerged independently in two different parts of the world.
Yeah, it shows how much we still have to learn
Right.
when it comes to human genetics and all the forces that shape our diversity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this whole field so captivating.
Right.
There's always another layer to uncover, another connection to make.
Exactly.
Before we wrap up, though, I have to ask about those ancient blonde mummies discovered in China.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about them briefly,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm like dying to know more.
Okay.
They were in that Detrás del Dato video.
Yeah.
And they've really piqued my interest.
Yeah. Well, they are a truly fascinating piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
We're talking about mummies found in the Turin Basin that date back about 4,000 years.
Wow.
What's remarkable is that these mummies had blonde hair and European features.
Hold on. So we have blonde Europeans ending up in the heart of China thousands of years ago.
It seems that way.
How did that happen? Did they like get lost on a really, really long trip?
It's still a bit of a mystery,
Okay.
but it points to these ancient migrations and cultural exchanges that we're only just beginning to understand.
Right.
These mummies suggest that the connections between Europe and Asia
Yeah.
go way further back than we originally thought.
It's like those mummies were time travelers,
Uh-huh.
bringing us clues about our distant past.
Yeah.
Not only were they rocking blonde hair, but they were also carrying secrets about human movement, interactions across huge distances.
Exactly. They're like puzzle pieces,
Yeah.
helping us put together the complex story of human migration adaptation and genetic diversity.
This whole deep dive has been like a whirlwind tour,
It has been.
from ancient mummies to modern genetics and everything in between.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that a simple trait like blonde hair can tell us so much about us, our history, and even our potential future.
It really speaks to the interconnected nature of humanity.
Right.
We may have different hair colors, skin tones, and cultural backgrounds, but ultimately we all share a common ancestor and a fascinating journey through time.
And on that note, it's time for us to come up for air from this incredible deep dive. But before we do, our expert has one final thought to leave you with.
So we've talked about how blonde hair, may have helped people survive in the past, especially in those areas with less sunlight.
Right.
But it makes you wonder, could climate change or other environmental things happening,
Yeah.
impact how common it is in the future? Or is it more about like cultural preferences and how much populations are mixing together these days?
Whoa. Those are some serious questions to think about.
Right. It adds another layer to our deep dive today. I
Definitely.
like leaving people with something to ponder.
Yeah.
It reminds us that even as we're figuring out the mysteries of the past, the future of human evolution is still totally unknown.
So true. Well, there you have it, folks. We've gone deep into the world of blonde hair, and we've come back with a whole new appreciation for how complicated it is.
It really is.
We busted myths, we
Yeah.
tracked down ancient origins,
Yeah.
and we even thought about what might happen to it in the future. Who knew a simple hair color could have so many stories?
It's a great reminder that even the things we think are simple can tell us amazing things about humans, our history, and even where we might be headed.
Absolutely.
Mm.
So next time you see someone with blonde hair, take a second to think about the history, the genes, and all the evolution that led to that awesome look. You might even find yourself thinking about the big questions about humanity's future.
Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep those deep dives going.
Until next time, fellow knowledge seekers.